Okay, let's get started. So I want to say thank you guys for coming out for this trailer talk. Um, we hold these once a month. It's just a chance for us to kind of get to show what we do and kind of make this connection between what we do and what you guys are doing out there as you're building the world. So just a quick agenda. We're going to go through intros. We're going to talk about building trust on the job site. We're going to talk about some of the new features in Outbuild. And then we're going to have a quick Q&A, closing remarks. And I'm going to give you guys the rest of your Wednesday back. If you have any questions, you could feel free to throw them in the chat. Any comments, any anecdotes, any jokes, just throw them on in there. So we're going to start with introductions. Nikki, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll start it off. Hi everyone, I'm Nikki. I'm the newest member of the team, so you might have not seen my face yet. I've been with Outbuild for about a month and a half now. Before that, I was getting my degree in construction management at Cal Poly SLO. After I graduated, I did a couple years as a project engineer with Webcore, general contractor in San Francisco. Got my time on and off the field, and now I'm here. You'll mainly see me in the chats. I'll be trying to help guide you and support everyone in however way I can.
My name
Thank
is
you.
Mike Wong. I'm head of customer success with Outbuild. I'm really excited to be kicking off another season of trailer talks this year. New faces, new team, new subjects. We really do appreciate you guys spending the time with us, being on the chats. I know everyone's busy. We try to make these as value add as possible. We love comments and any suggestions you guys have. But yeah, thanks for being here.
Okay, and I will introduce myself. I'm Will, obviously. I'm facilitating today. Just to give a little bit of my background, I've spent over 10 years in the construction industry. My grandfather was a carpenter. I'm actually named after him. And so I've pretty much grown up around construction my whole life. I've worked on projects ranging from $240 million to about $10,000, from heavy civil projects, infrastructure, transportation, commercial, residential. I've seen a bit of it all. And so that's why I was excited to talk about this topic today, which is building trust on the job site. But before we jump into that, I just want to let you guys know that all of these webinars are recorded and you can find them on our Outbuild page. So you can watch this back if there's something you missed, or if you wanted to see previous ones where we talked about different things, you can always go back and watch these recorded webinars. And we also have a bunch of learning resources as well. So if there's anything you need to learn how to do in Outbuild, Nikki mentioned earlier, we're always in the chats to help, but we also have a knowledge base to where if it's easier for you to watch a video, see a couple steps and do it yourself, you can always do that as well. All right, building trust on the job site. And the first thing I want to talk about is, what does it mean to be trusted on the job site? So I'm going to tell my perspective, and I want the people in the chat, I want you to think of whether it's a tradesperson, a superintendent, a project manager, who, if you were working on a very complex job, having them on the job site, you know that the job will get done, or at least you will feel a little bit more comfortable with them on it. One of the people that I'm going to show you a picture of later, I worked with this guy very early on in my career. He's a tradesperson named Fernando. Fernando was the guy who I knew if I had him on my job, he was going to listen to what needed to be done. He was going to solve any problems that he could. He was going to communicate effectively on issues that he was seeing, and he was going to be very committed to doing the best job that he could. And so, Mike, I'm actually going to call you out. And what's the story about a superintendent in your previous life that today, if you had to work on one of the most complex jobs you've ever worked on, you would call them up because you want them on your job site?
A guy named Jeff Cleary, actually. And I hope he hears this one day too. I probably send it to him. I worked with him on our Disney projects. We built Star Wars Land together, and him and I were the first ones out there, kind of just figuring out how stuff was going to work. We were in charge of all of the themed finishes, so everything looks like space. You know, the plaster paint, RFP parts, the domes, everything that was like looked like Star Wars. Very, very cool project, but also very difficult because there weren't really drawings that were set up when we first got set up. The design was as fast as we had a room of designers and then a room of builders, and they would just run basically details back and forth between each room, and we'd have to go out in the afternoon and build the stuff that we just designed the morning before. So that type of high pressure, we had to get this thing done and didn't have a lot of resources to do it. Jeff was always there, man. I was a young kid. I didn't have a family. You know, I barely had enough stuff to fit in a duffel bag in terms of stuff I owned. So the fact that he had, you know, a family, he lived hours away, you know, in Hesperia, which is nowhere close to Anaheim in terms of Southern California. He would be there early, he'd stay there late. We'd spend all this time together figuring stuff out, and he always put others before himself, which was really, it was inspiring to see as a young construction professional that somebody that had been doing it for 40 years still had the passion to keep doing it that way. Construction wears you down, boy, and if you can keep that kind of passion of helping people out, building trust and extending trust before you know somebody, it makes it better. I mean, it was one of, I speak to it as one of the best experiences in my life. A lot of it's because of Jeff.
And I'm pretty sure the people who are on this webinar, you can think of someone who you've worked with in this industry who who is your Jeff, who's your Fernando. I had a similar mentor named Adam to your Jeff. And it's kind of like you're talking about that passion for the industry and having that commitment to to going above and beyond. And so before I go on to the next slides, I kind of want to talk about why I'm bringing up these opportunities to build trust on the job site. Number one, it's listen to learn. Number two is being committed to persistently solve problems. And number three is to becoming the standard of quality. And the reason I picked these three general topics are because I feel like no matter what position you're in, no matter if you're a tradesperson, a project manager, a VP, whatever the case may be, these are tools that you can use across the board, that on any job site that you're on, you'll be able to form relationships and be able to build that trust, that where if you're out there, people feel a little bit more comfortable. People feel like I can hand you this and you can take care of it. Or people feel like, okay, you're here, so whatever problems we face, we'll be able to handle. So we're going to talk about these three opportunities. Opportunity one is listen to learn. And so if you guys can, in the chat, I want you to answer this question. Why do you think I chose listen to learn instead of being an effective communicator? And if no one answers in the chat, I'm gonna call on you, Nikki.
Come on, someone answer.
In the interest of time, I will keep
Throwing mine in there.
Okay, Mike, thanks. The last person to speak already knows more than the others. And that pretty much summarizes it. The reason I chose listen to learn is because it's not about the transfer of like information and sharing information amongst the people to just build the job. It's about understanding your team, the project, their roles, your goals as a company, as a project team, the client's goals, and the goals for the structure that you're building, right? So you want to make sure that you're learning not just, okay, how do I build this job, but what's going on here? what are people's pain points? What are the issues that we may be facing that maybe I can help solve? Maybe I can pick up on a piece of information, and maybe from my past experience, I know how to deal with that. It also establishes healthy communication practices, which one of the biggest things in the construction industry is communication, communication, communication. As soon as you get information, you want to make sure it's out to all of the responsible parties, and that pretty much everything's off your plate, and you want to over communicate sometimes rather than under communicate. But when you take the chance to kind of listen to learn what's going on, it allows you to not just get all of the information off of your plate, because you might be asking questions that might have already been answered. You may not have the full picture on a design, or let's say there was a conversation that your superintendent had with the architect while you guys were walking, and you didn't pick up on certain information, and you're just blasting out emails and things like that, but you're not really listening to what's going on, where you wouldn't have maybe over communicated or doubled down on some things that you shouldn't have. Just moving on, helps determine valuable experience and skill sets. You never know what someone can do until you ask them or you hear them speak about it, right? So you may have key players on your team who, let's say you have a guy who's really good at punch lists, right? And I'm bringing this up because I was one of those guys who's really good at punch lists. On a $35 million, 250 square foot interior office renovation, I closed out a 3,500 item punch list by myself because I was trusted to do that. And they saw that that's the skill set I had, not from me boasting, oh, I can do this, this, and that, but listening to learn and understanding your team and where those strengths are. And then kind of going on to the last point, which is can lead to catching potentially valuable information that can help project success as well as building future business. So I've experienced this. I know, Mike, that you've experienced this, and probably many other people. How many times do you learn about the upcoming project while you're currently building a project? You learn about that all the time from clients, right? You can raise your hand, put it in the chat, whatever it is. But a lot of the times, your next job comes from just being on the job site and hearing what's going on. And it may come from the client you're working with or the subcontractors you're working with, where they're like, oh yeah, we're bidding this job over here doing this, this, and that. And you might get a piece of that pie because you had that conversation and you were willing to listen and not just go do your work, get the project done, and move on. And on the more personal side of it, we're going to move on to this next slide. You spend most of your time, oh, well, technical difficulty. You spend most of your time at work with the people you're around. And Mike, I know you want to touch on this slide a little bit, so I'm gonna open it up to you.
Yeah, no, and hats off to Will too, because it made these schematics like maybe 20 minutes before this webinar. So this is just an idea that we were talking about that I talk about with a lot of people that are struggling with building trust on their job site, or wondering why their teams are not performing to the level they wish they would. Not just leaders, but other parts of the team and key stakeholders of a project. You spend a lot of time. You're going to spend a lot of time with the people on your project. You just start a project. You know, it's kind of in honeymoon stage. You're all okay with each other, right? It benefits you to work very hard to try to have a relationship with as many people as you can on your job site. You don't got to be best friends with them. You don't got to go to their weddings. I'm not saying that. I'm saying as you progress through these different work hours, this is a work schedule that's 5/10s, right? So generally it's a 50-hour work week, I think, standard. Most people in construction, much more accurate to be a 6/10, more like 60 hours a week. And you can see some of the other parts of these pie charts. There's sleep, family time, and commutes. That stuff can't really change as much. Some people don't sleep as much as they should. But you can see the work really starts eating into family time, starts eating into free time, starts eating into potentially sleep at some point too. But as this percentage of work grows, the importance of you building relationships that allow you to work better, that allow you to enjoy driving 2 hours every day to this job site. If you're gonna dedicate yourself to this job, you got to dedicate yourself to the people. And again, it doesn't mean you got to be best friends with anybody. You're still going to probably have differences with the majority of people. It's kind of the beauty and a bit of the curse of construction is that there's just a mix of different people, mix of personalities. It's high pressure. People are tired. Emotions can be short, type of thing. But that's also a very mixed bag of people in construction. You get all sorts of different opinions, and it behooves you to be a part of the team. As okay, I might not think the same as you. I might not come from the same culture background as you, but we're all going to be here for this chart. 72 hours of my week, right? 52% of my life is going to be spent working next to you or conversing with you. Literally half my life for the rest of this job, I could be potentially working with these people, right? So you put that in perspective of if I'm not sleeping or hang out with my family or commuting, I'm going to be next to you. I might as well try to make that work and enjoy that part of my life as much as I can, because there's no reason just to close the door and not try to be open to other people's opinions or listen to them. Doesn't mean you got to agree with them. You guys don't have to, again, you don't have to agree with each other all the time. Conflict's healthy in the team, but at least being a part of a conversation where you're not just turning people away right away because you don't believe in what they're saying, or you don't trust people right away because I don't know you, I haven't worked with you, a bunch of different reasons why you don't trust people. But I just like this little idea because I get in my mind sometimes too of where you spend the most amount of your time is where you should spend the most amount of your effort, kind of where energy goes, focus flows, energy goes, right? It's important to think about this when you're setting up a project.
And and just to kind of touch on what you were saying, Mike, to take this even a step further, the more you focus on becoming trusted here, the more these areas can actually kind of grow because how many times have you built relationships with subcontractors that you're like, you know what, I'm going to use you on my next 3 jobs because not only are you a great subcontractor. You guys are buddies, pals, kind of friends. And I know there's a line there, but people want to work with people they like, essentially. And so you do better business when you're able to build that trust and foundation within the partners you're working with, that these areas can then grow. So, for instance, if I'm on a job site with a superintendent who has kids or grandkids, right? And I know the holiday time is coming up and we're working all of this, but I focused on building my trust on that job site to where, you know what, I can handle punch lists, I can handle staying here to be supervision. You get to increase your family time now in your free time to go and spend the holidays with your kids, grandkids, whatever the case may be. And we're able to do better business, save money, and work more efficiently as a team by just listening to each other. And it may seem very frivolous at first, and it may seem like, again, Mike was saying, you don't have to be friends, you don't have to go to each other's wedding, you don't even have to hang out outside of work, really. But if you just take a little bit of time to listen, it builds trust very fast. And when you're able to offer, you know, your problem solving abilities, and you're able to provide solutions for people beyond just the project you're working on. As you build that trust, no matter what job you're on, you'll build that reputation of being that guy that people can lean on. And so that kind of brings this into opportunity too, which is commitment to persistently problem solve. Job sites are full of people who have problems, and you won't be one of them. And I'll raise my hand to this, and I know, Mike, you can attest to this and raise your hand and put it in the chat. But how many times have you seen your superintendent or foreman, or you are the superintendent or foreman who's running around and it seems like everybody has nothing but issues for you? Until you get to the end of the job, it seems like nobody has anything but issues for you. Whether it's, I don't have the right saw blades, to, oh, this design is messed up, to this doesn't work, or this material didn't show up. to build trust on a job site, you want to not be that person as often as possible. So when problems do come up, instead of going to someone and saying, going to your project leaders or or going to the client and saying, you know what, we can't do this, but actually being committed to solving the problem and saying like, okay, we ran into this issue. How do how can I solve this? How can this team solve this? And then how do we present this problem, right? You save time, money, productivity, and efficiency because you're able to say, you know what, I'm just not going to throw money at this. I'm not just going to throw manpower at this. I mean, how many of us hate rework, right? How many of us hate to have to rip out something that we've already done because we're moving too fast, or we ran into an issue, and instead of bringing the problem up and trying to come together and come up with a solution, someone just did something and now you're having to start over. It happens all the time. And so when you have this attitude that I'm going to persistently solve the problem, no matter how many no's you get, no matter how many times things come back rejected, you are committed to making sure that, okay, I'm going to be a resource on this team, that my project leaders can go and do what they need to do. And I'm going to handle whatever comes to my plate. And if there is an issue that requires the bigger team, at least I try to solve the problem first and best way that I can, so I can come with solutions and kind of my own case study. And that way, when we're ultimately together solving the problem, there isn't this like, well, you didn't even try, or you didn't put in an effort, or how could you not see the solution? Because sometimes the solution might be right in front of you, and it just takes a little bit of persistence to find it. And then you become a resource and not a liability on the job site, which is very huge because if you're the kind of person who gives up very quickly, which I'm sure nobody here is because you wouldn't be in this industry if you are, but sometimes we run into those people, right? And they may say, well, I couldn't do this because of this. And you have a conversation, well, did you try this? Did you try to solve the problem? Or like people who just walk up to you and bring you all of their issues without ever trying to work any of it out. They then become a liability because you're also doing their work now. It's not just your thing, you're also doing their work. And that's adding to what the project leaders on the team are having to deal with. And so the more committed you are to solving problems and making sure you come to a solution that works for yourself, works for everybody, works for your project team, your clients and customers. You build trust by being that person that they know like, okay, this person, you can't tell them no. If there's an issue, they're going to figure it out. If we're on a complex job with multiple moving pieces and parts and we're working with other contractors and things like that, I know having them on my team, I have an asset, I have a team member who's committed and who's actually going to help and not be someone who I have to carry along. And I get it, sometimes you have to train people, sometimes you have to teach them and they have to learn through experience. But the more committed you are to solving those problems on your own and having that mentality of I want to be the problem solver, not the problem, that trust on the job site is just going to build more and more to where people are going to request you on their teams. I've had this happen uh, at several different companies that I've worked at before, where it's like, I know, well, on the technological side or the AV side, I know he's going to solve whatever problems may be going on. So I want him on my team because this is going to be a very IT heavy job. And so I'm speaking about this from personal experience because I've seen it work. And Mike, I'm pretty sure you've seen it as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of processes we set up on the jobs that we've made of before you bring a problem to anybody, you already have an idea of a solution, right? And then you're kind of verifying with the key stakeholders if that's a proper solution. Whenever it started as like, well, I got a problem and I'm just going to throw it out to the group and expect somebody to help solve it, it always takes twice as long to find that answer. And it's not you that's suffering; it's the people that are trying to get the work done that are suffering to get that answer of, I can't finish this framing. I can't put this mechanical system in until I have this answer. So to do the work up front, and then give the solution beforehand, basically write a confirming RFI instead of just a blank question RFI, always is a better practice.
And I kind of want to tell a little bit of a story to this. I was working on a demo project. It was a very selective demo project, and one of my crew members had an issue with his sledgehammer. We were knocking down some CMU walls, and he had an issue with it. Instead of telling anyone or trying to like find another sledgehammer, he just kind of sat around. And as I'm walking around and I'm making sure things are running smoothly, I asked him, well, why aren't you working? And he's like, well, my hammer broke. And I'm like, okay, there's more tools on the job site. You can pick up different tools and do different things. He didn't have that mentality of like, I want to solve the problem. He ran into a problem. He stopped there and just stopped what he was doing. And nobody really wants to work with people like that. And I'm not knocking that guy. And he was a younger guy and had to learn a little bit. But that was one of those situations where some people really just stop. They say, you know what? I ran into an issue. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to stop doing what I'm doing, and we will figure it out when someone comes and says something. You don't build trust that way. You want to make sure you're proactive, make sure you're always coming with solutions and coming ready to be a resource for your team. And that kind of brings me on to the third opportunity I wanted to talk about, which is becoming the standard of quality. So becoming the standard of quality, I really wanted to focus on this building trust within the job site is because anyone can throw up work. And I mean, you can find any guy who knows how to pick up a drill, a couple tools, and they can do the work, right? But it's that skilled labor force that pays attention to detail is what a lot of companies are looking for. Everyone's looking for, honestly, but not just from the tradesmen. You want that to carry through all of your trade partners, through all of your coworkers and everyone who's on the job with you, because when everyone's committed to becoming the standard of quality, they're taking the job above and beyond what normal what normal contractors would normally do. It sets you apart. It really sets you apart. And being a person on a job site, let's say I'm brand new to a job, and maybe I don't, I came in midway through the job. I'm starting behind as it is, but I can build trust by becoming that standard of quality of I'm always double checking my work. I'm always making sure that that if I'm doing something, I'm doing it to the highest standard of which I can do it. And I'm making sure that the people around me are also doing that as well. It conveys a heightened sense of a heightened level of like expertise. Before we started with listen to learn, right, and not being a effective communicator, because sometimes in that being a effective communicator, you're trying to show your skills, you're trying to show your experience, not from like bragging or anything like that, but everyone wants to interject with what they know sometimes. And there's this acronym WAIT, which is why am I why am I talking? And it has to add value to what you're doing when you're speaking and when you're trying to raise the level of quality or become the standard of quality. When you're able to explain your expertise, your skill set, your experience, and show that you can do work above and beyond your competitors, and not just the competitors in the field, but the competitors who are, other people who applied for your job. Why were you hired? Because you want to become that standard of quality. You want to make sure you're doing better work. You want to make sure you're always producing the best product that you can. Elevating the standard of quality can elevate the standard of quality of those around you, right? So if someone sees you taking the extra steps to go above and beyond to make sure something is done right and done right the first time, the people around you, even if there's a little bit of pushback at first, will slowly get on board because they will see that you're doing something right. They will see that, okay, you're doing this in a way that is building trust on the job, that you're on all of these jobs because you're building this standard of quality that people are going to want to raise to that level with you. And I've experienced this, and from being the person where I've seen people do quality work where I'm like, okay, I want to now do better quality work. I want to make sure I'm doing better quality checks. I mentioned that punch list earlier and being trusted with that. That came from working with a superintendent who went above and beyond to make sure that when they're doing certain things, they're doing it to the highest standard of quality that they can. And so that rubbed off on me and a lot of people who kind of followed this superintendent around and learned from them. And it can lead to influence in the industry and new of means and methods of construction. So when you're doing something and you're doing something at a high quality and a quality that is above your competitors, people will notice and start requesting you for jobs, which can influence the industry of building standards, uh, contract language, uh, contract terms sometimes because they understand, okay, I like the way ABC drywall builds. I want all of my projects to be built the way ABC drywall builds. And slowly that becomes the standard for everyone, even your competitors as well. And Mike, I don't think you had anything you wanted to tie in with that, but
No, I love you had pictures of your actual jobs too.
oh
We're,
yeah, I
yeah, we
forgot to
have,
mention those.
yeah, Will is one of our, he's the freshest mind that came straight out of construction too. I was in construction 15 years, but it's been 3 years since I've been in it, and stuff happens quickly. So this is actually Will's experiences and the people that he's built relationships with. It's cool you're bringing us into the webinar. So
Yeah, and that guy I was talking about earlier, Fernando, this is him. On one of our demo jobs, it was a 1865 historical Chicago church. We were demoing out this old dormitory. It was full of coal dust and just asbestos. And the way Fernando worked, he made sure everyone around him was safe and that we were doing the job the correct way, the right way, and doing it on budget. And this was a very tight budget job. And I was stressed as it is because I was operating as kind of a project manager, superintendent. So I'm kind of in the field running the work while being in the office side of things as well. And I was able to trust Fernando almost completely to run the job and make sure things were done correctly. And that's what I said, like that's from building trust, working with him on other jobs and knowing that if he's there, he runs a tight ship, things will be done correctly, and I won't have to worry about as much. And any issues that come up, he's going to bring them to me and he's going to come with solutions, or he's going to sit down with me and say, well, this is how we could potentially solve it and try to come up with a solution with me. And just talking about becoming the standard of quality. It's just these are just design quality has improved over the years where, your standard office doesn't look the same. That now a design like this is very common in most people's offices. You didn't see this 10 years ago before Google started doing their big showing their office space and doing these open office concepts. You didn't see a lot of that. But because the contractor who was building those offices built to a standard of quality that people liked, enjoyed, they liked the design, a lot of the industry changed to this. And so I'm just showing some of these projects because these are projects where it's like, oh, This was some of those first few waves of the open office concepts that I was building, that I know came from the quality that other people were building, the standard of quality that other contractors and other companies that they were building that. Sorry, I'm almost running out of time there. So just I want to tie things all together. The reason I picked these three opportunities is because I think whether you're a contractor, a tradesperson, a subcontractor, a tech company like us, where we're providing software tools, we still focus on building trust with you guys as well. We want to be trusted on your job sites because we are a resource for you. So that means if you need trainings, if you have questions, if you need a schedule rebuilt, whatever the case may be, we focus on these things so we can provide the best service that we can. And I may not be spending 40 hours with you a week, but the time that you spend with me or Mike or Nikki or some of our other CSMs, whatever the case may be, we want that time to be valuable to you as much as possible. So we try to take the principles from people that we've learned in the field because we have a construction background here and implement it in how we serve you guys. And so that's why this is one of our topics. I'm going to get into some of the new Outbuild stuff really quick, and then we'll have questions and answers, and I'll give you guys back the rest of your time. So the timeline view, filtering of resources, you can now, um, originally when you looked at your dashboard, it was card view. You can now switch it to timeline view and you can sort by company, project, progress, start date, end date, uh, float variance, and things like that just from the dashboard without going into any of the projects. The P6 exportable. I know a lot of you guys were asking for that, and I know Britt wanted to make sure I brought it up so you guys know. Uh, there were a lot of requests for this. It's finally done. You can now export your outbuilt schedule to be uploaded to P6. And these are a few of our other updates. Again, timeline view, filtering of resources. You can now clone calendars. So when you clone a schedule and into a new project, your calendar for that schedule also clones over as well. Uh, the look ahead exportable now displays milestones, which it didn't before. And as you can see, the little milestone icon here that now shows up on your look ahead printout. The iPad, the offline mode for the iPad, where you can just view the look ahead, is available. You can access the service chat from there. And then you can now export look ahead PDFs from the iPad as well. And I just want to touch on our Outbuilt community again. So you can scan to join. We're always posting stuff up there, new videos of new features. You can comment on some of the new features, some of the new changes, and kind of keep building that trust outside of just your projects. So any questions? If you have any questions, you could put them in the chat.
You covered everything, Will.
All right. And we'll see you guys next month.